Hi guys, how are y'all? Welcome in to Rover Sports on this Valentine's Day edition of the show. I wanted to talk tonight. I wanted to talk about the Joe Flacco decision. And I wanted to talk for about 8 to 10 minutes on the decision by the Denver Broncos. So maybe we can all agree that Case Keenum last year was a disappointment of the highest magnitude. Case Keenum last year was an average to below average player at the quarterback position for the Denver Broncos. The Broncos ended up having to fire their coach, Vance Joseph. They lost in embarrassing ways to the Jets. They lost to the Baltimore Ravens. They even lost to the Oakland Raiders on the road. They barely beat the Raiders at home in Week 3. They got swept by Kansas City. And I believe that they also got swept, or they might have split with the LA Chargers. So the Denver Broncos had a very disappointing season last year with Case Keenum as their quarterback. They weren't able to make a playoff run. They even lost to the Cleveland Browns at home. So we can all agree, maybe we can't all agree on anything, but maybe we can all say that Case Keenum experiment last year was a disappointment. Now, at the quarterback position for Denver, they let go of Trevor Siemian, who was also a marginal player. He's such a marginal player that no other organizations wanted Trevor Siemian as the starting quarterback. Trevor Siemian is a 7th round pick. Brock Osweiler is a 4th round pick. 4th rounders in the NFL aren't supposed to start football games. They're not even supposed to play well. Most 4th round NFL picks, especially at the quarterback position, are lucky to even make a roster spot as a backup quarterback. So, for everyone that says that John Elway is not a good quarterback evaluator, he drafted Trevor Siemian in the 7th freaking round. What do you expect 7th rounders to do? I think Trevor Siemian might be one of the most successful 7th round quarterbacks in the history of the NFL. That quarterback should be applauded by John Elway, that he was able to find that kind of player in the 7th round that's actually started games and actually has looked competent out of Northwestern. So this whole notion John Elway sucks at picking quarterbacks. The only terrible decision that Elway made at the quarterback position was selecting Paxton Lynch. Paxton Lynch also was wanted by Kansas City and famously wanted by the Dallas Cowboys. And the Cowboys lucked into getting Dak Prescott in the 4th round. And Dak Prescott is an anomaly in the 4th round. So is Russell Wilson. Those are not the norm. Those are the lucky anomalies in the quarterbacking process. But let's get to John Elway's decision yesterday. So I mentioned how Case Keenum and the experiment was a failure last year. However, the Broncos, by passing on Josh Rosen, and by the way, Josh Rosen hasn't looked all that successful. Josh Allen's looks decently successful, but again, he's not a shoo-in to be absolutely perfect. John Elway decided to take Bradley Chubb last year. And Bradley Chubb is a big-time player. Big-time player. John Elway also decided to take Courtland Sutton, Deshaun Hamilton, Josie Jewell, really, really good players. Isaac Yiadim could possibly be decent. Very, very good class John Elway was able to take last year from the NFL draft. So I think Elway's a good general manager. He's putting his team in a position to succeed. You have Von Miller, you have Josie Jewell, you have Davis as one of your linebackers, you have Shane Ray, you have talent on this team, Christian Harris, Darian Stewart, you had Talib for a long time, Bradley Roby didn't turn out that well. But this is a good linebacking core. This is a good team. Brandon Marshall is a damn good linebacker. So you look at Andy Janovich from Nebraska. This team is filled with talent. Philip Lindsay, how about that find by John Elway? Signing him as an undrafted free agent, basically making $400,000 and basically being one of the top 10 running backs in the NFL and probably the third best rookie offensive player, and he wasn't even drafted as part of the draft class for the Denver Broncos. I think Elway's doing a fine job. So a lot of people that don't like John Elway, frankly, they're jealous of his Super Bowl wins, and they just look at the quarterback position, which has been Simeon, Case Keenum, and point is, Vance Joseph, it doesn't matter how good of a quarterback you are. Maybe you're that good of a quarterback. It's hard to win when your coach is absolutely atrocious. So part of that could be blamed on John Elway. And John Elway's been too conservative throughout the quarterbacking process. So you know what John Elway's doing? He's doubling down. He's basically saying that we don't want Case Keenum anymore. That's what he's saying. He's saying with this move of getting Joe Flacco, he's eliminating Case Keenum from coming back as a starter. Because this is what I am going to say, and I hope you guys listen. If for some reason the New York Giants or the Jacksonville Jaguars had enough draft capital to move up in the draft to draft Drew Lock, this isn't a quarterback-rich draft. Say that Denver doesn't like Dwayne Haskins because he's only played 1 year of college football. Only 12 games of starting. And they're worried about how he deals with pressure. And they're worried that the Urban Meyer offense was dumbed down to a lot of screen passes. And there hasn't been an elite NFL quarterback come through Urban Meyer since maybe Alex Smith. And Alex Smith is not elite. He's marginal. Tim Tebow wasn't good. Chris Leak wasn't good. Braxton Miller. None of these quarterbacks were all that good. J.T. Barrett, Cardale Jones. Not a lot of Ohio State kids were that good. Then you look at the other quarterback, Kyler Murray's 5'9". There's never been a 5'9" quarterback before that's been successful. So again, that's a huge risk. Huge risk. Drew Lock at 6'3" has played in the SEC for 4 years. That's why they like him. He has the size and the experience. He also has great arm strength. He also has a quick trigger. He has a very live arm, and he's able to get the ball from point A to point B very quickly. So Denver likes Drew Lock. That was the worst kept secret of the draft process. But listen, Denver was third in the quarterback market. You have the Giants at number 6 and the Jacksonville Jaguars at number 7. Say Nick Foles goes to Redskins or Dolphins and not to the Jaguars, not to the New York Giants. Suddenly, Denver is in the back seat. And guess what happens if the Giants or the Jaguars fall in love with Drew Lock and trade up to get him? Say that they offer a crazy amount to trade up and get Drew Lock. Guess what Denver's doing next year? They're stuck with Case Keenum. They're stuck wasting another year of Von Miller. They're stuck giving Vic Fangio and Scaramuccello a terrible quarterback to work with in Case Keenum, a very average quarterback. You know what the definition of insanity is? Making the same mistake over and over again. And Case Keenum is average. Case Keenum is not a good quarterback in the National Football League. That's why Minnesota got rid of him. So you know what the definition of insanity is? It's rolling back with Case Keenum. The NFL draft is a crapshoot. You just think that you're going to go and get Drew Lock? You need insurance in life. That's why we have insurance in our lives for things like car insurance, house insurance, business insurance, and Joe Flacco is insurance in case you don't get Drew Lock. And guess what? It's not like Marty Morningweg is an outstanding offensive coordinator. He's a retread hire. He's old. It's not like the Ravens had unbelievable skill position players. It's not like their defense, it's not like their wide receivers were incredible. It's not like their defense was even close to what Ray Lewis and that team represented in 2013. It was an okay defense. This year was the first time where the defense got pretty good because they brought in Tony Jefferson. They brought in Eric Weddle. They have guys like Judon finally healthy and finally playing well. It's not like they've had a great running back either. So now Joe Flacco actually has good skill position players. He has a change of scenery. The altitude is going to make the football go even further. And Joe Flacco is a flat-out good thrower of the ball. Now, Joe Flacco was a marginal leader, wasn't a great leader, wasn't very timely, very inconsistent in the regular season, and very pedestrian other than that one unbelievable year. He was a little bit pedestrian, but he has a very high upside. And he has won a Super Bowl. He played in such an unbelievable way, winning that Super Bowl against the Patriots. You can't just gloss over that. He beat the Patriots. He beat Denver. And then he beat Jim Harbaugh and the 49ers. So Joe Flacco was able to achieve success at the highest possible level. When you look at him and Nick Foles, very similar quarterbacks. Denver took matters into their own hands. Would I rather have Joe Flacco or Case Keenum? Joe Flacco any day of the week. Joe Flacco can throw the ball further than Case Keenum. Joe Flacco has won Super Bowls. Joe Flacco, first of all, Joe Flacco has won 10 playoff games, I believe, in his life. 10. Case Keenum should have won none. If not for that horrible play by the New Orleans secondary, he should have won 0 playoff games. He went to the NFC Championship game, and they had the 5th easiest schedule with Pat Shurmur that year. And the defense for Minnesota was at peak of powers. So, point is, why would Denver want to roll with Case Keenum again? If I was a Bronco fan, I would not want to roll with Case Keenum again. Now you bring in Joe Flacco, a big-armed quarterback, a guy who has a lot of veteran experience, a guy that's had some playoff wins even when he hasn't won the Super Bowl, a guy that's been a very good starting quarterback, a guy that's been a good, adequate quarterback for about 10 to 15 years. Okay? You bring in an experienced veteran. And this is a guy, everybody says Joe Flacco's a terrible teammate. Lamar Jackson, I saw Joe Flacco on the sideline with Lamar Jackson. He was helping out Lamar Jackson. Joe Flacco was a good teammate last year. You ask the people of Baltimore what they think about Joe Flacco, ask Ray Lewis. Ray Lewis is the most respected Raven ever. Ed Reed, guys that were on the team with Joe Flacco. Brandon Stokely, guys like Jacoby Jones, Torrey Smith, they all got along with Joe Flacco. People got along with him. He's not a hard guy to work with at all. That's why Ray Lewis had him at his speech. That's why Harbaugh and Flacco are so tight, and it was such a tough decision to move on from Joe Flacco. But Flacco needs a change of scenery. And you know what? Is it fair that Joe Flacco got shipped out of Baltimore for a quarterback in Lamar Jackson that still has a little bit of trouble throwing the football? It's absolutely fair. Joe Flacco's gotten 10 plus years to go out in Baltimore and perform, and towards the end of his career, towards the end of his Baltimore tenure, he was struggling. They put in Lamar Jackson. They went on a 6-1 run. You drafted Lamar Jackson in the first round. You play the kid. The kid had a 6-1 record last year. Do I think that Lamar Jackson is going to be a starting quarterback for the next 2 seasons? Do I think he's going to be there after 2 seasons? I don't. I worry about Lamar Jackson. Even though he was good this year in terms of wins and losses, and that's what you mark a quarterback by, is wins and losses, he struggled in the playoff game. His defense was incredible. His competition was easy. They beat Atlanta. They beat Oakland. Who else did they beat along their run? They beat the Bengals. They had an easy schedule, and Lamar Jackson took advantage. And yes, he did play pretty well. But once NFL defenses can try to stop the run, is Lamar Jackson going to be a consistent pocket passer in the NFL? I don't think so. But Baltimore has to give the keys to Lamar Jackson because Joe Flacco wasn't getting it done. Ozzie Newsome selected Lamar at 32nd overall. Give the kid 2 years. Give him 2 years to show his stuff. I have no problem with what Baltimore did. They're taking a risk, and if it's great, if this quarterback is great, we will find out. His throwing hasn't been very good compared to the other quarterbacks that were drafted. So we shall see. I have my doubts, but hey, the kid's 6-1. He absolutely deserves 2 more years to be the starting quarterback. Absolutely. He got the team into the playoffs. So for all the Lamar Jackson haters that are like Joe Flacco should have just stayed there and started, plus you're not keeping Joe Flacco there for $20 million. You move on from Flacco. It's a good deal for both teams. Very good deal. 4th rounder. I think that Baltimore even could have got a 3rd from Denver, but they got a 4th. And Denver, instead of letting Flacco out on the open market, instead of letting other teams like the Giants, like Jacksonville, like other teams try to talk to Flacco, now they get a Super Bowl starting quarterback. And guess what? At number 10 overall, they are going to look to move up and select Drew Lock. If you go from Flacco to Lock, you should have your starting quarterback all handled. And you need to nail the starting quarterback. Your starting quarterback has to be good if you want to win a Super Bowl championship. If you want to win a Super Bowl championship, your quarterback has to be pretty good. Nick Foles is pretty good. Joe Flacco's pretty good. All these quarterbacks have been very good for the seasons in which they were leading their teams to the Super Bowl. So you have to be a pretty good quarterback. And Joe Flacco might not be unbelievable, might not be great, might not even be that good. But he is an adequate, pretty good quarterback who's an upgrade over Case Keenum. And he's going to be a guy that's going to lead Denver to, I think, a lot of success this year. And for Joe Flacco, who's not that mobile, who's a big quarterback, Drew Lock can certainly learn a lot from Joe Flacco if they get Lock. So the priority, of course, should still be to get Drew Lock because you need to nail down the future. Because, again, Joe Flacco has been very, very erratic up and down, okay? He's been up and down. It was his time to leave Baltimore. I wouldn't call him a crappy quarterback at all. I think he is a good quarterback with above average ability, with the fact that he needs to get more competitive. He needs to start caring about football more. And I think that the fact that Lamar Jackson unseated him will motivate him well. Going to a new city, a new team will motivate him to practice hard, to play hard, to impress his teammates. The fact is he has a chance to go with this defense and to win another Super Bowl, and I think that John Elway was brilliant. I really think that next year with Joe Flacco starting at quarterback, the Denver Broncos can win a playoff game next year with Vic Fangio. And if they win a playoff game, whether it's in the wild card round or anything, then everybody should be giving credit to John Elway. If they make it to the divisional round of the playoffs, John Elway should be praised for this move if Joe Flacco can win a playoff game. Or if the team wins 11, 12 games with Joe Flacco, then you need to admit that the move was a good decision, no matter what. Period. Because with Case Keenum, same defense, same everything, this team won 8. I think they won 7 games last year. 7 or 8 games. That ain't going to cut it. Stop doing the same thing again. If you didn't get Joe Flacco and somebody picked Drew Lock, you were screwed. And the fact that you didn't pick Josh Rosen and pick Bradley Chubb, it isn't the end of the world. It's not the end of the world. You have Chubb, Von Miller, Brandon Marshall, Shane Ray, Christian Harris, Darian Stewart, and now you just hired a great coach, Vic Fangio. I think he's going to be a tremendous coach now because this is a great defense. And Scaramuccello leading Joe Flacco, leading Drew Lock. I'm tired of hearing that Joe Flacco sucks. He won a Super Bowl championship. He doesn't suck. He might be average. He might not be that great. I think Case Keenum's closer to suck than Joe Flacco is. And I think it's an upgrade no matter how you slice it. And a 4th rounder, Garrett Grayson's a 4th rounder. Bryce Petty was taken in the 4th round. Kyle Lauletta. Look at 4th round quarterbacks. You think that 4th rounders are instant NFL starting players? Heck no. Most of the time, They barely even make the 52-man roster. It's Donnell Pumphrey. It's all these other running backs that you haven't even heard of. So a fourth rounder, oh my God, you're giving away so much. No, you're not. You're not. You're not giving away that much for a quarterback that you need to compete. You need a starting quarterback. You're not giving away a lot at all. Fourth rounder. It's a perfect deal. $18.5 million on the books. What more can you ask for? You know, in this society, everybody's like, the Maroon 5 halftime show was horrible. It sucked. John Elway sucks. He's trash. John Elway drafted Deshaun Hamilton, Phillip Lindsay, Bradley Chubb last year. He got Peyton Manning. He got Peyton Manning to win a Super Bowl for him. He drafted Trevor Siemian in the last freaking round, and Trevor Siemian's one of the best seventh-round quarterbacks ever. Yes, he drafted Paxton Lynch. Yes, he fell in love with his arm out of Memphis. Paxton Lynch basically couldn't study the playbook. Wasn't mentally tough enough. Had some mental issues. Played at Memphis for a year. Risky. That was the 25th pick in that round, by the way. 25th. Same as Teddy Bridgewater. Teddy Bridgewater and Paxton Lynch doing the same thing. They're backing up right now. They're backup quarterbacks right now. So, unbelievable. Unbelievable. Even when Bridgewater was starting, he was like 23rd best quarterback in the NFL. Had a horrible injury. Hope he gets better. Hope he starts. That's the point. It's hard to draft quarterbacks in the back of the first round. Everyone's too hard on Mr. Elway. Bottom line. Too hard on John Elway. Great trade, John. Thank you. And Denver fans should appreciate you. And Denver fans should look forward this year, right now. I'm going to say it. Denver's a playoff team. Denver wins a playoff game with Joe Flacco. At least. See y'all.